folks online. If we haven't met, my name is Karina. I'm a senior BA here at Ecom Canada, and I'm also a certified yoga teacher. I've been studying for past 2.5 years, and I got my certification. I continue learning. Right now, it's yoga therapy training that I'm going through, which is the next stage. And I've been practicing yoga for, I would say, for over maybe 13, 15 years. I don't even remember how long, but it's been a long time. Okay, so the reason I wanted to conduct this session is to bring some understanding to what yoga practice is, and to help those who want to practice yoga, to guide them through their personal practice, to help them attend the yoga studios and how to do it properly if they choose to try yoga. And I would like to emphasize what yoga is about and how it can improve our lifestyle. So the subject and the name of this training is Yoga Practice Daily Dozen. This is a yoga practice that I've written here that includes some postures and practices and exercises that are very important to do every day for every human being in order to live a healthy and fulfilling life. Before we start with this practice, I would like to emphasize a few things. Usually yoga is treated, or from what I hear from people that are coming to me for a personal practice and group practice, they usually say, I would really love to try yoga, but I'm scared. I'm not flexible. I'm afraid it's going to be just like gymnastics, and I'm afraid to be injured, which is a totally fair statement, because we don't want to be injured. We want to continue an active lifestyle. The truth is that yoga is appropriate for every individual when we make a good fit. So that's true. A lot of yoga studios and a lot of yoga instructors, they do provide challenging asana, challenging postures, and they do ask us to do some things that are not reasonable. It's true. However, if we target our yoga practice in an intelligent way and we know our body and restrictions, we can definitely enjoy a yoga practice, and it will be a healing experience. So, Jermaine, do you think they can see those quotes on the wall?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to move the camera a little bit. Okay.
Okay, so I've put 2 quotes here on our other whiteboard. The father of modern yoga is considered Krishnamacharya. He was an Indian man who sort of brought yoga into Western world. And one of his famous quotes is, if you can breathe, you can do yoga. Yoga is a process of calming the mind, of focusing the mind through uniting body and breath movement. So if we can breathe, we can do yoga, we can work with our breath, we can bring more energy in. Another quote is that yoga is a process of replacing old patterns with new, more appropriate ones. It is his quote as well. And when we are practicing yoga, we're trying to quite often calm the mind, so come out of a pattern of being agitated or lethargic, or having a restless, racing mind. When we're practicing yoga, we try to often move our body into an opposite direction. If we have scoliosis, we're trying to fix it. If we have tight hips, we're trying to make them more flexible. But also we're working with our breath. So in a yoga practice, we're working with our body, breath, and mind. The truth is that the quality of our breath tells a lot about our mind. So if my mind is agitated, my breath will be shallow. If I'm calm, if I'm in a happy state, my breath will be long. That's just a simple statement about how our breath, mind, and body are connected. And ultimately, when our mind is going through some difficulties, thinking about problems, our body and our muscles become tight, our neck becomes tight, our trapezium muscles become tight. So body, breath, and mind are very much related, and in a yoga practice, in an appropriate yoga practice, we can target all three aspects in order to improve our I guess life experience. What I wanted to also talk about is stages of life. Quite often we see yoga instructors, we go to yoga studios and we see yoga instructors giving challenging asana, giving a lot of chaturangas, which is a push-up, giving inversions, headstands, giving things that are require a lot of flexibility, and sometimes we feel injured, we feel tired, we feel it's not appropriate for us. That is absolutely right. The thing is that yoga is changing as the individual's life and age are changing. So, for example, in ancient tradition in India, people started practicing yoga when they were 3-4 years old. So between the age of 3 or 4 years old until 25, it was a stage of growth. So kids they're flexible, they are restless, they can jump, they can exercise, they can do all kind of crazy postures. It's their growth stage. They need to have a muscle mass, they need to gain some sort of flexibility, and that's why their practices can be challenging, and they can be working towards this growth stage of their life. When we are 25 and up until we are 75, it's an adult stage of life where we have to maintain what we gained. It's not an appropriate stage to try and become super flexible and try and do some crazy things that you couldn't do, right? So what we want to do is we want to maintain a healthy lifestyle and not try and aggravate our body with some things that look cool on Instagram, but in fact are going to injure us, right? And from 75-year-old until like 120 and whatever, it's a part of life where we want to move more into meditative state. We want to be turned more inward, and so yoga provides techniques and postures and meditation and breathing exercise for that stage as well. What we're going to talk about is a practice that consists of asana and exercises that are good for most people in our society because of our sitting lifestyle, because of lack of movement and walking. We have certain problems that this practice will target, and I will explain more as we go. Okay, let's begin. So as you can see, all of the movements have breathing instructions. So it's either inhale or exhale, right? When appropriate yoga practice is done, there is a movement and there is a breath instruction always. So if you go to a yoga studio and they say downward dog, jump forward, come up, and then forward fold, and then low lunge, and so they give you asana, but they don't give you breathing instruction, how to breathe when you perform it. And the breath is very important because, as we said, when we move and we focus on breathing, our mind quiets down, we relax, we experience a state of meditation, we experience a certain relief, and that's why breath is such an important part of a yoga practice. So this first part is a sun salutations. It's a dynamic movement, dynamic exercise. We stay here, and then we inhale our hands up. We exhale forward fold. We inhale into low lunge. We exhale to downward dog. We inhale to upward dog. Then we exhale downward dog. Inhale low lunge. Exhale forward fold. Inhale, come all the way up to standing. And exhale our hands down, right? So as you can see, it's a cycle and it's a dynamic movement. It's a very good thing to perform in the morning because mornings are not the best part of our day to be trying to do splits and trying to flex our muscles. We just woke up, we're tired, we want to get our system going, we want to wake up. That's why we're doing sun salutations. 6 rounds, left, right leg. 6 rounds is a good idea. Do less if you have less time. By all means, you can do less, but it's a good heating practice, and it's called, in Sanskrit, it's called Surya Namaskar, which means sun salutations. When ancient world was around, people woke up with the sun, not like us, waking up at whatever time we want, but they woke up with the sun, and in order to in order to sort of show their gratefulness, they did the sun salutation series. You can see there's quite a lot of folds, and it's a dynamic movement, but it's also an aspect of being grateful. I survived the night, no wild animal ate me, I'm alive, I'm going to greet the sun and start my new day. So again, dynamic movement is such a good idea when you are starting your day. Another very important part is heart openers. So we sit at our desks, we look at our phones, we type, and this happens, right? So rounding of our middle upper spine, this area right here. Yoga is moving you in the opposite direction. Proper yoga practice is supposed to target things that going out of balance, right? So when we do this, when we're on our phone, we get out of balance. Our spine is supposed to be long, right? Spine long, neck long. So that's why it's a good idea to target this area over here. It's a mid-back, upper back area. We round it quite a bit in our society, and we need to heart opener postures. So the idea here says palms out. The idea here is that our shoulders are also rotated forward because of the same lifestyle. Here you can see the breathing instructions as well. We exhale on forward fold. We inhale to flat back, right? So I'm going to demonstrate. We clasp our hands, but see how my shoulders are still rounding and I'm still kind of... If I turn my palms out, now we have a proper posture. So we inhale, and then we exhale, we fold. Then we inhale to flat back. Then we exhale, forward fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, forward fold. So 3 rounds, couple times a day. It's a great way to do after you've been sleeping, because quite often we sleep in the same position. And even during the day at your desk, it's such a wonderful idea to do it a couple of times. So inhale to flat back, exhale, forward fold, palms out, shoulders rotation. It's not going to feel that great because we've spent so much time being rounded, right? But it will definitely feel great in the long term, and you will feel this area is opening up, and your middle and upper spine can arch and it becomes more flexible. This is what's considering the heart opener. I would like to bring your attention to one more point. Quite often in yoga classes and in other activities of life, we treat it as military. So we're like, my knees have to be straight. No, your priority is your spine. In your yoga practice, if you need to bend your knees in order to have your spine lengthened, by all means, do bend your knees. So this little stick figure over here has its knees bent. Why? Because my spine is going to be compromised. So I'm just going to pretend I'm right here. My knees are straight, but I'm right here. I can't move forward. Now, if I bend my knees, I can fold so much deeper and get a better, more effect out of this asana, right? So whenever you're in downward dog, whenever you're in a forward fold, whenever you're in seated forward fold, bend your knees if you feel like you're holding on for your dear life, your entire muscle back chain is shaking, your muscles back leg muscles are shaking. That's not a good idea. So another important part of a yoga practice is called, sorry, I'm just going to steer. So in actually Yoga Sutra by Patanjali, it's a codified kind of wisdom aphorisms, they talk about yoga. So they say sthira sukham asanam, which means that every posture has to be performed with steadiness and alertness, but comfort. That's why we say if this is too much pressure to keep your legs straight, bend your knees, right? So we have to have sthira sukham asanam. In that case, if we are in comfort but still alert and steady when we're performing yoga practice, our breath is not going to be compromised. So when we practice yoga, we have to be very mindful of what's going on with our body. If we feel muscle tension, we should bend our knees or ease out of a posture, don't go as deep, right? If we're still in a yoga asana, and for example, we can't breathe, we are supposed to have a long and smooth breath. If you're in a split and you got there, but you're breathing because it hurts so much, you can't breathe, right? And you're aggravated, your breath is agitated, it also gives you an indication that you have to get a lighter version, don't go as deep, bend your knees, so all of these things. So Sthira Sukham Asanam is the very important part of a yoga practice. Your body, breath, and mind have to be with comfort, but alertness, right? So this is the balance. Okay, balance. Third out of a daily dozen. Quite a lot of times I see people, as we age, we lose our sense of balance. We can fall easily and then we injure our hips and we injure our bones and so on and so forth. So for healthy and a more fulfilling lifestyle, we do have to have some sense of balance, how our body is feeling in the space. So those balances, quite often in some yoga practices or popular teacher on Instagram, you see they're doing crazy balances, headstands and stuff like that. It's all an amazing balance postures, but I just picked a simpler one. So it's a tree pose. It still gets you to a point where you're trying to feel balanced, trying to feel your body in the space better, trying to focus. So balancing postures, they bring focus to our body, breath, and mind. Because if I'm agitated, I'm not going to be able to stand like this. I'm going to be like shaking and moving. And so tree pose, the important part is not to place your foot on your knee, because it's your knee joint, you don't want to injure it, right? So either on your shin or on your hip, right? Another part of balance postures, quite often we're like, oh, it's a balance posture, but I can't keep it, right? I fall out of it and I'm not focused. So if we're focused, if our mind is focused, if our breath, if we're mindful of our breath, we're able to stay in balanced postures if it's appropriate for us, right? In a sense that if it's too of a complicated posture for your muscles to have, you're going to fall out of it. The funny part about balancing postures is they are called balance postures because you feel balanced after, not because you're supposed to stand in a perfect balance in that posture, right? So when you perform a balancing posture, you come out of it, you see that requires certain mind focus, certain body alertness, certain breath alertness. You feel more balanced and focused after you perform it. Okay? So indication here is 5 breaths. So left, right leg, 5 breaths is a good idea. 1 breath cycle is inhale and exhale. Number 4 is a squat. So it's a sequence that we use in order to get properly into a squat and stay in a squat for some time, for the reason being of our hips flexibility. Most of us, we're still young, we're strong, but we can't squat anymore, which is actually quite ridiculous because before recently, if we look at the whole human history, chairs, couches, things like that, it came around recently, and it does affect our bodies, not in a good way. For example, in the Eastern countries, they still eat on the floor, they still read on the floor, they sit on the floor, they go to the bathroom in a squat, and it helps them to keep their hips very healthy. which is not the case with us, because it's like, I know a person who wasn't even a 40-year-old woman who already had to have both of her hips replaced. It's quite ridiculous. So most of us, we can't go like this. Like, we cannot go into a squat, and we cannot stay here comfortably. We're shaking, our ankles are tight, our hips are tight, and it's influencing our blood circulation, and it's influencing our hip joint. And we do want to target that in our yoga practice as well. So I'm going to take you through the sequence. Inhale, exhale, you see all the arrows again. You're able to see them. Good idea to do it at least for 3 rounds, the whole sequence. It's not going to take a long time. Here is the squat. Here is the squat. So we're standing, and then we inhale our hands up. We exhale, we forward fold. We inhale and we bring our arms wide to the sides. Why? Because again, we're trying to open this heart area. We squeeze between shoulder blades. We exhale as we squat. You don't have to squat fully, both feet on the ground. You can start with squatting if you're on your tippy toes. When you squat, if you're on your tippy toes, you can't go further. That's fine. Stay here. In order to stay in a squat, you can wrap a blanket or put a pillow under your heels so that you can comfortably stay in the squat. Good idea to stay in the squat for a couple of breaths. My yoga teacher says we have to all spend at least 30 minutes a day in a squat. In order to have our hips healthy, blood circulation, 30 minutes a day. But let's just start with a simple yoga practice. My teachers, they eat in a squat. So their lunch and snacks, they eat in a squat. They read in a squat also. If they have to read, they come into a squatting position and they read, and that's how they get their 30 minutes a day in a squat. Another fun part about a squat is, imagine eating in a squat. In the East, a lot of people, you see, it looks funny, but it doesn't become that funny when we have to replace our hips. They don't have to replace their hips. They're also not overweight. You know why? Because they eat in a squat. Imagine you're eating in a squat, how much you're going to fit into yourself. You're going to fit in much less than you're doing now, right? So they're healthy, they're living a healthier lifestyle and experience less pain. They experience less disease like diabetes and all the cancer.
Won't we stress our knees when we sit in the squat?
What, stress on knees?
Yeah, I feel that.
You might feel it because you're going too low and you're not able to stay as low. So if you put blanket under your heels, or you don't go as deep, or you stay on your heels, you might experience it a bit different. And we might as well feel pressure in our knees because we're not used to it.
Yeah.
If we would be sitting in a squat since childhood, and reading and studying and going to school and working in a squat, it would not be a problem for us. Another funny observation, I have nephews, they draw in a squat. They can sit like this and draw for hours and hours and hours. And kids know, because their bodies are healthy, they're little, right? They do that. It's a very important part of a lifestyle. Okay, next one is a back arch. There is an expression that you're only as young as your spine is flexible. So that's why we introduce back arches and spine twists. Back arches are also having an energizing effect. If you stay in this pose, which is a back arch, it's a mild back arch. It's not like a full wheel pose, you know, but still doable by most of us. We can put, for example, if we cannot stay like this with our back chain strength, we can put something under, like we can put a block under or a bolster under here to keep us lifted, but we're still getting a back arch. This is an energizing effect and keeps our spine healthy and flexible, and it also keeps the back chain muscles engaged, right? And again, we're here on our back, our knees close to us. On inhale, we place our feet on the floor, we push into our feet, we push into our hands, and we lift into a back arch. We exhale as we bring our knees close to our body. And we do that for 4 rounds. We can stay in the back arch for a bigger energizing effect. Yeah, but it's a very important part in the day as well. Next one is a spine twist. You can see a same pose. You're here on your back, knees close to you. You inhale your arms to shoulder height, and then you exhale, bend your knees, drop your knees to one side. Do left side for 5 breaths, right side for 5 breaths. It's going to be a great effect. You don't have to bring your knees as close to your body. You can bring them a little bit more far from your body if it's challenging, but a spinal twist keeps our vertebrae flexible, because when we twist, all vertebrae, they have to twist a little bit. And then that keeps our spine healthy, that keeps the blood circulation going, and it's really an essential part of my day to spend some time in a spinal twist, because then we also twists also have a detoxifying effect. If you're twisting your organs, you know how you sort of do this with a towel? You do the same with your spine, you do the same with your organs when you twist and breathe properly, right? So, spinal twist. We will send out these pictures, and we will send out this yoga practice. So if you want to take a picture later, by all means.
I've been putting them in the share too.
Oh, nice, very nice. Next thing is a counter pose. Again, essential part of a practice. So let's imagine we've done that. Let's imagine we did the Surya Namaskar, the forward fold, we opened our heart, we spent some time in the balance, and we did a squat, then we spent some time in the back arch, then we did a twist. Now we're like this. Oh, my low back, right? So this is a counter pose for our lower back. Our lower back should not be aggravated in the back arch, because we have to use our glutes, we have to use our back. It shouldn't be all dumping the pressure into our low back, but quite often it happens. We have to be mindful of that. Any part of a yoga practice must have counter poses. Why? Because there are a lot of asana that are energizing and strengthening and blah, 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 but it also has a negative effect. Like anything in the world, there's a positive effect, there is a negative one. Counter poses, they help us offset the negative effect. So, again, for 5 rounds, exhale, knees towards you, inhale, knees away from you, lying on your back. Exhale, knees towards you, inhale, knees away from you. This is a wonderful counter pose. It's a good idea to do it also. This is also great if you're going to bed and you feel like your low back is off, and great for low back, great for this region. Sometimes when we have constipation, we can't go to the bathroom, we ate too much, digestive problems. This is a great idea. If anybody has babies or have seen babies, when you want babies to go to the bathroom, you do this with them. They're lying on their back, you're moving their legs. This gets this area moving. It's a wonderful thing to do. At any point, if you're in a yoga studio or you're trying to do a personal practice, at any point where you feel tension, something hurts, you need to stop and do a counter pose. Rules of the counter poses, they have to be easier than the posture that aggravated you. If you were, for example, in a headstand, and then you feel like your neck and your back and something hurts, you're not going to go to shoulder stand, because it's not that easy, you know, you need something restful. So counter poses should be easier than the previous aggravating posture. It should be dynamic, because when we breathe and move, that's when the balancing back happens. And it should be moving your body in the opposite direction. So if I had a back arch, right, this makes my back chain move into the opposite direction. It doesn't make sense for me to have a deeper one and go to a full wheel. It's not going to be a counter pose, right? So counter poses, at any point of your yoga practice, you feel any tension, you need to stop and do them. After postures like back arches, postures, strengthening postures, balances like forearm stand, shoulder stand, headstand, counter pose is a must. Okay. So now we get to an inversion. Inversion is a crucial part of everybody's day. The only conditions where you should not be doing an inversion is if you're a woman and you're on the first or second day of your cycle. That's just silly when the nature is trying to get out of things. You're flipping upside down, right? It's silly. Or pregnancy, you don't want to, because nature again wants to move baby out, and you're like, when I see those bloggers and they're with a big belly upside down, I'm like, you've been trying to move it to that direction for 9 months. What are you doing, right? So inversions are a wonderful idea, except some cases, right? And inversion doesn't also always mean like a fancy headstand or a fancy forearm stand. It means just to flip your body upside down, to have your lymphatic flow go in the opposite direction. Another thing is gravity. Gravity pulls our organs down, right? We're always walking around like this. Gravity pulls it down. We experience some organs dysfunction because they start to sink, literally. There are muscles that hold them. There is a balance with gravity and human beings on Earth. It's not like you stand and everything drops right away. It doesn't drop right away. It doesn't happen right away. But there is an effect over years accumulated, right? So that's why when we flip upside down, our lymphatic system is able to rest, our organs can slowly move into the proper spaces. Okay, so inversion can be a headstand, handstand, fancy things that you want to do with the proper instruction, but inversion can also be a downward dog. So for example, you can see that your legs are here, but your entire spine and your entire body are actually upside down, right? So that can be an inversion. An inversion can be simply bringing your legs against the wall, pressing your feet into the wall and trying to lift. You can see that it's not such a big angle like in a headstand, but you're still getting the effect. Now imagine you spend 5 to 10 breaths here. Inversions are also a great idea for morning because they're energizing, right? They're energizing. They're waking the system up. Great idea. Next one that we have is hips again. So pigeon pose. You're in downward dog. You inhale into the pigeon. So you're in downward dog. Inhale your right knee to your right wrist. And pigeon can be squared pigeon is when your front shin is parallel to the short edge of your mat and your back shin is parallel to the long edge of your mat. It's an easier version. Pigeons can be assisted with blankets, bolsters, anything that lifts, because not everybody is able to sit, like this, and their entire hip is on the floor. Sometimes you need something under here, which is a fine thing to do. Important thing to remember about pigeon is your hip bone should be sort of facing in the same direction, and you should you should always feeling effort and tension like 6 out of 10. It shouldn't be like acute pain. I got into here and I'm gonna stay here for 10 breaths and it hurts like hell, and that's gonna be just a negative effect, right? So 5 to 10 breaths on each side, effort. 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, you're able to stay in a posture. You're able to breathe. Your breath is not compromised. Your breath is not agitated. There is no pain that you cannot, move. Because some people, they think they spent like 50 years making their hips tight, and then they're going to get in a pigeon and stay there, and it's going to be great. No, it's not going to be great. So here is an important part is to look at your knees, because the knee rotation is not the most comfortable one in the pigeon. You need to assist, lift your hips higher to see that there is no tension anywhere. Okay. 10 is a forward fold, and again, we're sitting on our hips, and then we're raising our arms overhead as we inhale, and then we exhale down. And you can see that spine here is not compromised. So it's a long spine, it's a long neck, but there are knees that are bent. So if I'm sitting on the floor and my legs are straight, but my spine is like this, it's rounded, and I'm holding for dear life, it's not a good idea. Again, we need to have the principles of a yoga practice, which is comfort, steadiness, and that's why we bend our knees. We try to lengthen our spine. If you have to bend your knees in order to keep your spine lengthened and your neck lengthened, that's the right spot to be at. And again, we can stay for 5 to 10 breaths. Next thing on our daily schedule is a breathing techniques. There are so many breathing techniques in yoga. We know that when we calm down our breath, our mind comes down. When our mind comes down, our body relaxes. It's all related. Body, breath, and mind. Body, breath, and mind. So after our yoga practice, it's a good idea to practice pranayama. Pranayama is a breathing exercises. The breath has to be long and smooth. There are different breathing techniques that are faster in pace, that are energizing like a coffee cup, but it's not pranayama. Pranayama is supposed to be long and smooth breath. Funny fact that animals that have a longer breath, that breathe less, they live longer. So take a dog and take an elephant, right? Everybody understands that elephant has a longer breath, deeper breath, they live for longer. Same with people. If you have a shallow, agitated breath, the whole oxygen, it cannot get to all the cells. We age faster, we wear out of our body, right? So if our breathing techniques that we use here serves our breath in order to make it longer, we're able to breathe less often over time. It's a wonderful thing to do. It calms down our mind. It relaxes our mind. It relaxes our body. We live longer. Everybody's happy. The technique of a breath to use during the yoga practice is called Ujjayi. If you want to Google it, because we have like an informative session, I'm not able to demonstrate for those who are online. But Ujjayi is also called an ocean breath because of the sound that it produces. It's breathing through the nostrils, inhale and exhale through nostrils, but it's trying to bring the slight constriction in the back of our throat, so we almost sound like ocean or Darth Vader. I don't know. It's. I'm going to try and exaggerate it, but it sounds something like this. So you're still breathing in and out through your nose, but slight constriction in the back of your throat. The reason being long and smooth breath. If I'm trying to make my pores smaller, it means that the air in and air out is going to be a longer process, and we get the long and smooth breath. So during our practice, we all have our breathing instructions here. During our practice, we inhale and exhale using Ujjayi. It's a wonderful technique to do. And here, when we do our breathing exercise, we sit down. I suggest we do Ujjayi as well. It's easy. It gets us to, the point where we need to be. Good idea to start with a certain ratio. So our breath has 4 components. Inhale, hold after inhale, exhale, hold after exhale. That's one breath cycle. We all do it without noticing. We inhale, we have a slight pause. We exhale, we have a slight pause, and we start again, right? So when I say a ratio, I mean how long is my inhale, how long is my hold after inhale, how long is my exhale, how long is my hold after exhale, relative to each other. So these ratios are very different for every individual. For example, hold after inhale, if we lengthen that hold, that energizes the person. Like imagine you inhaled and now you have to hold for like 15 seconds. You will have this energy going out and you will energize yourself, right? So if a person is tired and lethargic, they need to hold after inhale for longer. If the person is experiencing certain issues with like trying to detoxify their body, hold after exhale is a good idea. Hold after exhale has a calming effect. So if we hold after exhale, we calm down. Sometimes it's a good thing to do before we go to bed. But here, for the purpose of this practice, one, 1.5, 1.5. What does it mean? If I inhale for 10 seconds, I'm going to hold for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to exhale for 10 seconds. Then I'm going to hold for 5 seconds. Is that understandable, right? Same thing. If I inhale for 5 seconds, hold after inhale 2.5 seconds. Exhale for 5 seconds, hold after exhale 2.5 seconds, right? So 1, 1.5, 1, 1.5 is a good idea for balancing the whole thing, calming down the mind. Here, when we're doing breathing exercise, same principles apply. If I choose to inhale for 15 seconds and I'm not ready for it, I'm going to choke, right? My mind is going to be like, are you crazy? Take a breath in, right? So we have to also pick the amount of seconds that we choose to do each component of the breath appropriate for us. So maybe it's a good idea to start from 5 seconds or 7 seconds inhale and then work our way up. I know a person in my yoga therapy class, they can inhale for 64 seconds. Imagine they're just inhaling for 64 seconds, then they have a hold, then they have an exhale, then they have a hold, then they inhale. So imagine this guy, Krishnamacharya, who was, by the way, he lived to be over 100 years old. Over 100 years old. And he was active and he was teaching until the last year of his going, right? So his breath, 2 minutes. It took 2 minutes. So it was like something like, I don't remember, like 32 seconds inhale, hold, blah, blah, blah. So a person, one cycle of a breath was 2 minutes, right? And it was crazy. And then he was practicing and practicing and practicing. And obviously there was an effect. He was healthy, he was active, he lived until over 100 years old. So the point being that we have to work our way towards a longer inhale and exhale and holds. It's a good idea. So sit and final rest is another thing. So imagine we did all that practice with mindful breathing, then we did an inversion, then we sort of loosened up our hips, then we did some breathing. Now it's going to be easier to do meditation. We just sit down. Meditation is not it's funny when people say, I meditated. Meditation is something that just happens to us. And the moment you think it happened, you fall out of it, right? It's like sleep. You don't know when you fell asleep. If you know when you fell asleep, you didn't fall asleep, right? So that's why I'm saying sit, because some people say, I meditated. It's more appropriate to say, I'm going to make an attempt to meditate, because the meditation is a state that happens to us. Yes, we can work towards it, we can try to promote it, but we don't know if it will happen or not. Nevertheless, just being seated in a quiet environment, or not quiet environment, I don't know if people have like 5 kids running around, probably it's not going to be that quiet, but still, after our practice, after our breathing, our mind is in a calm state, our body feels good, our breath has been kind of worked on and calmed down as well. So now it's a good idea to have a sit down, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. There are so many different techniques for meditation attempts. I'm pretty sure you're familiar. Focus on the sounds, focus on your body sensations, focus on your breath. Focus even on your thoughts, because when we meditate, we can feel that our thoughts, they're flying around in our head, right? There's a thought that came in. I can choose to get carried away with it, or I can say, I'll thank you later, and then it passes, and then not, and then there is nothing, right? So we can meditate in so many ways. And by the way, we all know what meditation state feels like. If you have ever been absorbed in your work and you're so focused and then you're like, whoa, You fell out of it. You're like, I've been somewhere else. I've been so focused. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else existed around me. I was in a certain state that I cannot describe. My mind was calm. My mind was focused. We all know that state. Sometimes, for me, for example, I sometimes experience that state in extreme sports. I do kiteboarding. If you are not focused, you're just going to boom, fall, fall, fall. But if you're focused on your board, you're focused on your kite, you're trying to see where you're going, you're so focused you forget about everything else. And then a couple of minutes later, you understand that I've been so focused, it's been the best rest of my life. My mind was not aggravating me, because quite often we get tired because our mind is agitated. For example, monks in monasteries, yogis that go away to Himalayas to stay there, they sleep 2-3 hours a day. They're not tired. Their mind is not agitating them. Their bodies, it's enough for them to sleep 2, 3, 4 hours a day. They wake up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., do their thing, meditation. So the thing that really gets us tired and aggravated is our mind, right? So when we meditate, we're able to slowly work on towards controlling our mind and changing some patterns, mind patterns, replacing agitated mind with calm mind, training our mind to relax and to give us a break. Final rest. So after we've been meditating, it's a good idea to just lay down. And here there are a few options. So for example, if you're practicing in the morning, 5 a.m., you lay down, what's going to happen? You're going to fall asleep, right? So we have to be mindful about that. If we're, for example, if we're practicing in the afternoon, yoga class starts at 6, it ends at 7, you have your final rest, you're energized, you can go on for a couple of hours, you can go home, do your thing and go to bed. Good idea, right? So we have to be mindful and we have to think what's appropriate for us right now. Another great things is to do is ball rolling. I brought some balls, you can look at them. I'm actually at This is what I mean by ball rolling. There is a ball, it can jump. It's hard. It's harder than a tennis ball. It's smaller than a tennis ball, and it can target certain muscles. So if we lay down on our back and we place the ball under our back, between our spine and our shoulder blades, and we sort of roll around, we will find a lot of tight spots to work on. Our low back, everywhere, just not on your bones, right? Not on your spine. Our trapezius muscles, our neck. Good idea to purchase something like that and roll on the floor. It's like a massage, but it's a targeted massage. We can relax our muscles, we can relax our knots and tight spots on our back, and even hands. Like sometimes I have injured, both of my wrists are injured, and sometimes they're achy. I can even use it on my wrist, right? Pool noodle, another wonderful thing. Remember we were saying that this area, mid-back, upper back area is pretty tight. Noodles, they look soft, but if we lay on them, so imagine this is a noodle, it's right under your, the most tense area of our spine, you lay down, and it moves us into the opposite direction, because we tend to do this, but when there is a noodle here and I'm lying on the floor and my body weight is pressing into the noodle, I'm opening up this heart region and I'm sinking into the noodle and I'm getting rid of the tension. So these are just some ideas for the rest part of the practice. By the way, this practice, if we do it everything with proper breathing and stuff, will probably take about 40-45 minutes. So it looks like, oh my God, it's going to take me 2 hours. Forget it, I don't have time. But 40 minutes overall, and we can split. For example, for the morning we can do active, dynamic sun salutes, heart opener, balance, back arch, squat, blah, blah, blah. For the evening, we can choose to do breathing, sit, pigeon, forward fold, right? So we can split it to make it intelligent and work it into our daily routine, right? Being mindful of inversion, not a good idea to do before bed or at night, because inversions, they agitate us, they make us more energized. I don't drink coffee. Like I have not been drinking coffee for so many years because I just don't need it. I have other tools. Breathing, inversion, back arch, it energizes me, I don't need it. But if you're going to bed, it's not a good idea a few hours before bed to do something like that, because it might affect your sleeping patterns, okay? 1 second, I'm gonna see if I have something else to say. What time is it? Okay, so I think we don't have much time left. This, I guess Jermaine will be able to send out a picture to everybody who is interested. And if you have any questions, if you want to ask me how to survive through a group practice, how to build your own personal practice, any questions on the breathing, on these postures that I offered here, please let me know, email me. As you can see, I love yoga and I'm not going to shut up about it, so I'm always happy to talk about it. I love teaching yoga. It's been a part of my life, most part of my life that I remember myself. I've been practicing. So it's really something that changes everything. It's 40 minutes a day that affect the entire day, and the effect is accumulated, and you feel more happy, more energized, more healthy. Another important quote that I'm going to finish with, Krishnamacharya's son, so the father of modern yoga, Krishnamacharya, he lived over 100 years, and he had a son who took over that yoga tradition after him, and he'd been studying with his father for the longest time. So he's a great teacher as well. He passed away, but one of the favorite quotes from him that I have, that your yoga practice, we can see if it's working, if it affects our relationship. If it affects our relationships in a positive way with the world, with ourselves, with other people around us, with our family members, it means it's working. But if it doesn't affect our relationships in a positive way, it's not working. If we are doing crazy postures and it boosts our ego, and now we feel cool and amazing, and everybody around us are stupid and they can do things, and you get angry with your family members, it means your practice is not serving you. But the indication of your yoga practice working and serving you is maybe not the amount of postures and the complexity of the postures you do, but if it makes your relationships better. So that's one of my favorite quotes. And if we have any questions online, if we have any questions in the room, I'll be happy to answer. Okay. Any questions? No? Okay.
What's the best size to start laying
on the noodle?
Yeah.
The best size, good question. Good question. So the question was, what is the best size to start lying on the noodle under my spine, right? So the best size is this. And we have to be intelligent about it too, because for some people this is too much, and you might want to roll up a towel or a blanket that is smaller than this size. But quite often on the internet, you see people trying to, just lay down on something thicker. In my experience, it's not going to work. Why? Because you put something giant under your spine, your body is going to compensate somewhere else. So I think this is the best size. Okay. Okay,
There's
so
one more question online.
Okay.
Are there any of these exercises that you don't recommend for someone with knee injuries?
Some exercises that I don't recommend for people with knee injuries. Knee injuries. So I would definitely be mindful with a squat. Bring your hips higher, bring your heels higher. I would definitely be mindful with the back arch. Don't use your low back, don't use your knees, use your muscles, engage your glutes, engage your thighs for that. Tree pose, don't place it on your knee. Place your foot above or below your knee. Pigeon, again, raise your hips to not aggravate the knee. These are like full lotus postures. By the way, for breathing and for meditation, we can very well sit on the chair. We don't have to go all the way down to the floor. The rule here is your spine is lengthened, right? If you're sitting on the floor but you're hinging, that's not working. So for this, we can definitely sit on the chair and do our meditation and breathing as well, right? So if you have knee injuries, this also might not be a good idea. It also depends, knee injury is a therapeutical condition, so it also depends on what stage you are at. If it's acute pain, you can only rest and do some warm oil application on your knee. You cannot do any of this if it's acute pain. If it's a stage where you know you have an injury, but you're working towards flexibility and strengthening it, it's okay to do it, being mindful, being very careful with your own body. So I think that's it. Jermaine ran away somewhere. I think that's it. Any more questions, maybe?
So thank you.
Okay, thank you.